everyone, Alkelger the SideQuest Gamer here, and today we are wrapping up this trilogy with Donkey Kong Country 3 Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. The most polarizing entry in the trilogy, where some people think it's the best in the trilogy and other people think it's the weakest in the trilogy. As to where I stand, well, you're about to find out. So let's roll the footage and check out Donkey Kong Country 3 Dixie Kong's Double Trouble for the Super Nintendo. Now this is, like I said, the most polarizing entry in the trilogy. The reason being, in 1994, the first game took the world by storm with its fantastic visuals, music, and gameplay. And then in 1995, this is how you top near perfection. But in 1995, it was pretty much the end of the fourth generation of gaming, since the PlayStation and Sega Saturn consoles also came out in 1995. So in 1996, we finally saw Nintendo enter the fifth generation with the Nintendo 64, but a few months later, Donkey Kong Country 3 was released on the Super Nintendo. But it did sell 1 million copies, likely purchases by those who didn't have enough money to purchase a brand new $300 Nintendo 64 back then. To many people, this entry in the trilogy was unnecessary because what more could you possibly bring to the table? People wanted 3D platformers now, and I honestly feel that this game only existed because A, there was a cliffhanger ending at the end of Donkey Kong Country 2, and B, it would be weird just to not make it a trilogy. Yes, let me explain. Video game series are often most beloved in trilogies. Like for example, the original Super Mario Bros. NES games were in a trilogy, the Mega Man X Super Nintendo releases were in a trilogy, Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy in Japan at least had a trilogy for each of the Famicom and the Super Famicom consoles. So to release a series with just 2 entries would be kind of odd. Star Tropics, and for the longest time Shenmue were just 2 entry series, and people commonly dedicated video game forums with discussions about how awesome a 3rd entry would be, rather than accept closure for what it is, especially if it ended on a cliffhanger. Some of you would mention Sonic Adventure as only having 2 entries, but Sonic Heroes I will count as the 3rd entry in the Sonic Adventure games, because it was going to be called Sonic Adventure 3 early in development, and it does reuse some mechanics from the previous entries, like the homing attack, as well as the separate campaigns for different characters. But moving on. So here we have Donkey Kong Country 3 Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. The game was developed by Rare and published by Nintendo, starring, you guessed it, Dixie Kong, and her sidekick in the game being Kiddy Kong. Dixie was my favorite character in the previous game, and for her to have her own solo adventure sounded great to me, but who is Kiddy Kong? Anyways, the story involves Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong going off to explore the Northern Hemisphere, a mysterious land very reminiscent of the Canadian wilderness. But Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong disappear, so Dixie decides to go look for them and takes her cousin Kiddy Kong along with one of Funky Kong's watercrafts and explores the Northern Hemisphere and finds that this land is crawling with the new Kremling army led by their new leader, a rocket-propelled robot named Chaos. Yup. Chaos is totally the villain of Donkey Kong Country 3 and totally not K. Rool in any possible way, despite us seeing him escape in the cliffhanger ending of Donkey Kong Country 2. It's just like how Mr. X was the main villain of Mega Man 6 and totally wasn't Dr. Wily despite him escaping his fortress in Mega Man 5's ending. Yes, game, I totally believe you, it's Chaos. The gameplay has a few differences from its predecessor, but nothing too mind-blowing to be honest. The team mentality with Dixie and Kiddy is still prominent, although Kiddy is the only one who can throw Dixie up to high places, while if Dixie throws Kiddy, he wouldn't go far, but he could smash open weak sections of the floor. The levels themselves, while the first one had kind of a tropical island theme, while the second had a pirate and swamp theme, all the levels felt connected in some way, but the levels in this game don't feel connected. Once you're on the docks, then you're in a mill, okay. But then you're on a snow level that came out of nowhere. It is a bit odd, to be honest. There are 6 main worlds with a secret world, each containing 4 or 5 levels and a boss battle, as well as a few side quest areas like the Brother Bear houses, which I'll get to later, and then the Banana Bird caves, which I'll also get to later. There's also a brand new world called Pacifica that is exclusive to the GBA version of this game, and well, it does feel like it belongs in that game. One thing I will say is I really like the map screen of this game because it allows for some non-linear progression. While you do have to play through Lake Orangatanga and Kremwood Forest at first, once you get the upgrade to your hovercraft, you can choose between Cotton Top Cove or Mechanos or even the secret world Krematoa. Well, at least for a few levels, since you don't have enough boomer coins to unlock them all. But this form of non-linearity is pretty cool. But I honestly didn't mind the more linear form of progression in the previous games. But I will say the map screen is one of the very memorable aspects of this game, but the levels on the other hand, well, they all have a Canadian wilderness theme for the most part, but then a few levels are like dried leftovers from the previous game's level themes, like the cave levels, forest levels, and even factory levels all feel like less interesting variations of Donkey Kong Country 2's mine levels and forest levels, although I do prefer this game's factory levels over the first games, but you still notice that the level theme was kind of recycled and didn't really add anything new other than those owls that shoot fireballs from the background. They're not bad, they're just okay. In fact, that's pretty much my opinion on a lot of this game's levels. You see, while Donkey Kong Country 2 had some really memorable level design gimmicks, this game's levels just feel like a step backwards from even the first game's level design. For one, the camera that is still a problem in this game. Remember how I said in the first game the camera in the underwater levels would have been better if it panned upwards or downwards when you press the corresponding buttons on the D-pad? Well, for the tree levels, the camera problem still exists, where even when jumping upwards, the camera still centers on the Kongs and instead of panning upwards, allowing me to see what's above. And because of that, I find myself often hitting a buzz enemy, which are basically this game's mechanical zingers. In fact, sometimes I feel that the camera doesn't even center on the Kongs when jumping upwards. While it's not game-breaking, it's still kind of annoying nonetheless. Now don't get me wrong, the levels I like or love in this game still outnumber the levels I didn't care for, but honestly, if I had to make a list of the top 20 worst Donkey Kong levels, at least half of that list would compose of levels from this game. I really didn't like the gimmicky level design, like that one rocket barrel level, the one level where lightning is always trying to kill you and it's hard to predict where it's going next, and don't get me started on Stampede Sprint where you have to jump over enemies in bottomless pits while Alley runs to the end of the level. And I can tell you all of these levels require some knowledge of the level layout. But the levels I do love are the returning total water levels. I know there were water levels in Donkey Kong Country 2, but I count those as mainly partial water levels. And all I have to say is these are probably my favorite water levels in this trilogy, as the camera issues I've had with the first game's water levels didn't really bother me in this installment. Probably because these levels are more open and spacious with the enemies spread out, so it's more often that I didn't hit an enemy. But that's all I really have to say about the levels. Overall, I think they're decent, but a definite step backwards from even the first game's level design. The boss battles, however, are pretty good. All of them are pretty weird and out of nowhere, like Belcha, Squirt, and Bleak, but all of them are pretty fun to fight. Although they're kind of easy compared to the previous game's bosses. I will say that the final boss for the main game is tied with Captain K. Rool as my favorite boss fight in the trilogy. They're all good, but I felt that the second game did boss battles much better than this game, but these are still better than the first game's bosses. But as for the controversial gameplay additions like Animal Buddies and, well, Kiddy Kong, I honestly didn't mind them that much. Kiddy Kong is a team player, and people found him annoying, but honestly, he never really bothered me. While I don't care for his sprite design because it's so goofy, that's really my own problem. People also hated how he cried after losing a life, but honestly, I found that funny. Maybe in an ironic way, but still, Kiddy Kong is such an unnecessary addition to the franchise, but a necessary addition to this game, I will say. And the Animal Buddies, well, I was originally one of the haters of the implementations of these new Animal Buddies. Angwar the Swordfish, Squawks the Parrot, and Squirtle the Spider return in this game, and function like they did in Donkey Kong Country 2, although Angwar's charge attack I only used for the Barbos boss battle in Razor Ridge, or the GBA exclusive world Pacifica. They did get rid of Rambi the Rhino and Rattly the Snake, which I found disappointing at first, but hey, I'm not going to fault the game for that. Instead, we have new additions Ellie the Elephant and Perry the Parallel Bird. Ellie's kind of like Rambi, but can suck up water in its trunk and shoot it at the enemies and objects, which for some reason I really enjoyed this mechanic as it allows for some interesting level design choices. And with the exception of Stampede Sprint, I really enjoyed Ellie the Elephant and it was a lot better than I remembered, although I still hate how she is very scared of rats. Come on. Perry, however, sucks. This bird hovers over you and mimics your movement parallel to you, hence the name Perry. It can grab items in the sky you can't reach, but I just hate how you have to make sure it doesn't hit the buzzes because for some reason it doesn't have a sense of self-preservation in its bird-brained brain. But the animal buddies function as they did in the previous game. I've got nothing to complain about for that aspect, and I really do enjoy one of the new additions. Now, I am the side quest gamer, and I wouldn't be true to my name if I didn't mention the side quests in the game, if you would even call them that. Yes, this game has side quests of sorts. I'm not even just talking about the bonus barrels either, because this game does have a legitimate side quest, but remember the trading sequence from The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening? Well, that is basically this game's main side quest in a nutshell, where you find items, exchange them at the Brother Bear houses for another item, and get an end result. Although some will just give you banana birds for helping them out. So basically, you have to beat all the bonus rooms hidden in each level to get awarded Boomer coins. Get 10 Boomer coins, then go to the secret world Krematoa and go to Boomer's hut inside Krematoa. Give him the Boomer coins and he'll unlock each of the 5 levels in exchange for 10 Boomer coins each. Beat all of those levels and the game's secret boss and get all the DK coins held by the enemy coins and a few of the bosses. But then go to Funky with all the DK hero coins and he'll build you a helicopter, allowing you to go everywhere in the Northern Hemisphere, including the now reachable remaining hidden caves with the last of the banana birds. Reunite the banana birds with their queen and she'll give us a pretty underwhelming completionist ending cutscene. So with that being said, let's move on to the other aspects of this game. The graphics are pretty good, as they're in the pre-rendered 3D style like in the previous installments, but for some reason they're not as appealing to me as in the previous installments. The colors are not as vibrant, and the atmosphere in the previous 2 installments is pretty much downgraded in this game. I do like the backgrounds in some of the levels, especially the snow and lake levels, but there's hardly any atmosphere with the exception of the water levels and Lightning Lookout. And that's partially because of the music direction of this game. Evelyn Fisher from the first game composed the majority of this game's soundtrack, with David Wise contributing a few tracks, but while the soundtrack in the first 2 games was just memorable, this game's soundtrack sounds like a little too instrumental and lacked the ambience of the predecessor's soundtracks. It's still okay and sounds great for a Super Nintendo games, but it's just lacking compared to the other 2 installments. I will say the GBA version's entirely new soundtrack sounds a lot better, with my favorite tracks being Stilt Village and Waterworld. So overall, I would give this game an 86 out of 100. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to agree with the popular opinion on this one. I consider this game to be the weakest in the trilogy, objectively for the reasons I've mentioned previously, and subjectively because I've had the least amount of fun with this game compared to the other 2. After all, a wise man, or that wise man's wife whom he didn't give credit to, once said that comparison is the thief of joy, and if that's the case, then with the 61 reviews I've done so far, that's how many life sentences in prison I owe for grand larceny of their joy with that game. But I'm just saying, I'm not here to take away your fun with this game. My rating system is 75% me being as objective as possible, and 25% being the subjective margin. So even if I dislike or don't care for a game for subjective reasons, like Gears of War or Borderlands, I would still recommend it to you because they do function well. And sometimes I would have to not recommend a game, even if I like it despite its flaws, like Sonic R for example. So with that being said, Donkey Kong Country 3 is still a good game in my opinion, and to you, maybe it is the best in the trilogy. You are not wrong and neither am I, as it is factual as to how we each like the game. We all like different things as gamers, and we all need to accept that we are all individuals with popular and unpopular opinions on each game. That's why I hate calling a game overrated, because there is no such thing as an objective best game ever. No game is perfect, not even something as basic as Pong for the Atari 2600. But if someone loves a game more than you do, that's just it. They just like a game more than you. That's okay. So what if you don't think Zelda: Link to the Past, Star Fox 64, Half-Life 2, or Splatoon are as amazing as some people say it is? You don't have to think like them because you probably love games they wouldn't care for. So maybe Donkey Kong Country 3 is the best in the trilogy for you. Don't feel the need to rethink about how you feel about this game after seeing the flaws I've listed. Some flaws don't bother us as much as other people. Maybe you wouldn't have it any other way. So that's my review of Donkey Kong Country 3, but how does this trilogy stand as a whole? Donkey Kong Country is one of the best trilogies in gaming. Each entry has aged very well for the most part, with the only signs of age being the slight pixelation of the graphics, say if one would play this on HD TV without an upscaler. And the first two games are some of my favorite platformers ever, to be honest. And while the third one wasn't as decade-defining as the previous two, I will say it's a good game in its own right. 1 year after this game was released, Donkey Kong Country got a TV show cartoon and very dated CG by today's standards, but impressive back then. But as for the games, be sure to get these on the Wii U eShop. They're each $8, I believe. Thank you so much for watching. This is pretty much my summer finale, as I've done a lot of things for this channel this summer, from the Sonic Marathon as well as the Request Month, and to conclude with the Donkey Kong Country Trilogy retrospective. This was a pretty productive summer for my channel, but I will be going back to college next week, so I'll have to go back to shorter reviews. But I want to say thank you guys so much for tuning to every single review I've been doing this summer, as well as tuning into every edition of These Crazy Days in Gaming. It really means a lot to me, as I know you guys have lives outside of watching some guy on the internet talking about games. You guys got works, even school during the summer. It just means a lot you guys take the time out of your busy lives to watch this. But thank you guys so much for tuning in this summer, and remember to stay awesome, my friends.